Hello, greeting travelers. Welcome everyone to One More Cup of Coffee, Coffee and Culture's Genshin Impact lore podcast. I'm your host for today, Jside from the Genshin Guys podcast, but you can also call me Josh. So in this episode of One More Cup of Coffee, we will be joined by fellow Genshin content creator, MythicMageHat. Should I call you Mythic? Indie? What should I call you?
You can call me whatever you prefer. I go by Indy to a lot of people. But yeah, no, my name's Mythic. Hi, everybody. I play Genshin Impact, obviously, or otherwise I wouldn't be here. I don't
What? You play
think.
Genshin too? That's
I
crazy.
know, crazy,
What a small
right?
world.
What a coincidence, even. But you could call me Indy or Mythic, whatever you prefer.
All
Most
right.
people call me either.
All right, either. See what I did there? Because, like,
hmm
in. Okay, got it.
hmm
All right, so, Mythic, before we get started, how are you doing today? How you feeling?
I'm doing well. Yeah, I'm doing good. Actually, I thought I would go ahead and grab a cup of tea. I know it's one more cup of coffee, but I got like
Uh,
get my Earl Grey tea in the morning or at least afternoon for me now.
mm. Oh, that's good.
How are you?
Yeah,
How are you? How are you
it
doing?
is 10 a.m. for me. I have a
Nice.
slight cough, but I'll be fine.
No.
And I do have a cup of coffee with me, so I
Nice.
gotta, was it method acting? Yeah, we gotta be in the scene, you
Oh.
know?
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I am a voice
No, I
actor,
was
so
I
that
was
is what I do.
exactly. You got to get in the scene. I'm a theater kid by trade, pretty
Oh,
much.
nice. Okay. All right.
Also was a barista for, a number of years,
Oh,
so yeah,
perfect.
no, yeah, definitely in the coffee culture scene.
Did you do like when you were a barista, did you like sometimes like be a character when you would like talk to a customer?
Oh, man, I was a character every day pretty much, especially when you have, like, a drive-through, you have to answer.
Oh, okay, yeah. I love that. Yeah, that's great. Like
Yeah, no, I mean, it was different. You kind of sometimes put on different characters for different peoples. I mean, it helped with getting tips, I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean,
mhm. Yeah.
sometimes it was just playing with around with people too. It was a lot of fun, like, "Is this guy serious?"
So I was in retail and like I would go into a customer interaction. It could be like 30 seconds to like and to like hours, like literally, right,
Oh,
depending on what the
yeah.
situation was. And I would go in with like a British accent, and sometimes I had that customer for over an hour, and just holding that and trying not to
Oh
slip
my
is just oh
gosh.
like I can't go back now. They'll know
No,
I was lying.
it's funny, they say that, people tend to try to mimic other people's speaking styles too, so, like, there was a customer that I had that was from Great Britain, and she was like one day just was like, "Why do you do that?" And I'm like, "What do you mean, do what?" And she was like, "You sorta, like, speak with a British accent when you talk to me," and I'm like, "Oh."
Oh yeah, yeah,
I'm
that.
like, "I did not intend to do that," but it's, like, apparently a sign of empathy or something.
Oh hey, we're just empaths. That's why
Yeah,
we speak British
exactly. I'm like,
sometimes.
no, she was like the sweetest lady. I was like, "Ma'am, I would never ever be making fun of your beautiful accents."
Ma'am, I would never, honestly.
Never.
Yeah, so yeah, great. Well, it's cool to hear about your background a little bit. What else like I usually like to start with a little bit of background on the guest. So like what else like,
Yeah.
just to get to know each other a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Like where are you based? Like what do you like doing on your off time? Like just outside of Genshin, outside of content creation, whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'm usually very open about, many things with a lot of, the people come by my stream. I always tell people I'm from Louisiana. I think that's a very unique thing about me.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's like kind of a it's interesting because we have a very interesting culture. So like I try to share random things like cooking. Food is very important to me. I cook a lot, and it's also kind of weird like being in the central time zone. That's why I'm like always like they're like, "Oh, what time you start?" I'm like, "Oh, central time." And they're like, "What is that?" I'm like, East Coast is an hour ahead of us. I live in Louisiana, so it comes up every once in a while. But yeah, no, outside of streaming, cooking, I basically am very meticulous with cooking. I try to like make things look very perfect. I did a lot of
Mhm.
photography on my Instagram page with well, actually, I guess that's my personal Instagram page, but a lot of people join that anyway. Um, I don't know. Like I play League outside of Genshin, which is, more of a toxic thing. It's not really like something I like to stream. It's like, this game is I actually started out doing TFT streaming, believe it or
Oh,
not.
nice. I do believe it. TFT
Yeah,
is great.
it's a lot of fun. It really is.
Hey man, we should
And
play
if you
some
guys aren't,
ARAM sometime. Hey, that's all I play
oh
now.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. If you want
I
it,
don't
so
play I
I
don't
just,
play Summoner's Rift anymore. I just play ARAMs and
oh no, I
TFT.
don't. No,
Yeah.
I same. I can't play Summoner's Rift at all. It's just it takes too much time, and it's just not as fun.
I can't leave League of Legends. Like I've been playing since preseason 1, like on and off. So like so many
Yeah,
years
let's
now.
go.
It's like recently
Yeah, I've
got
been
back into
playing
it.
since beta.
Yeah, so okay, so we're in the same boat. Like it's like this
Uh,
it's just kind of there now forever. So
I mean, imagine going back just to farm for a skin and then quitting for months at a time, you know? That's basically
I mean it's basically a gotcha game at that point. Like
it really is. I actually so there was that that Misfortunes. I really like playing Misfortune and
oh dude,
everything.
same. I
Yeah,
wrote a fan
right?
song about Misfortune. I will play it for you
What?
sometime.
Oh my
Yes.
god. Yeah, you'll have to. You'll have to.
Okay, so there was a skin and
Oh yeah, so there's this it's like a nuns with guns skin. I'm like, "Oh my god,
oh
I
my
want this for
gosh.
Misfortune." I think it's called Fallen Covenant. Look, we're just giving Riot some free press time
I,
right
I
now.
mean, we're talking about our who we are, right? Like this is what we
Oh, that's
do.
true,
So like
that's
we
true,
play
that's true.
games, there are other games.
Actually, that actually would be a very interesting thing to say why, like, I mean, so I've always liked mythology growing up and stuff like that. I was always really
Mm.
into Greek mythology, just the occult, things of that nature, which is kind of like what led me down that trip to Gnosticism, which we'll be probably talking about a little later. But
Mm-hmm.
um, the big thing, funny enough, I out of college, I do write, I do write some fan fiction as well,
Oh,
but
nice.
I I wanted to write for Riot because they used to have this thing called because you played forever called a summoner's journal. And so they
Oh
would release
yeah.
these weekly summoner journals about what was going on in
In the
Runeterra.
lore, yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
before
and
they
I just
retcon the lore, yeah.
yeah, before they retcon the shit out of the lore.
Oh my god.
which which is fine. They have great characters and they really should.
Yeah.
I'm glad they're
I,
doing
I
that
actually I
animation.
wish that I get why it started the way it did, but I kind of wish that it was always that way from the beginning. Like it wasn't
Oh, for
summoners
sure.
bringing people into an arena and making them fight, and it was more like there's a living, breathing world and blah blah blah. So,
Well, I don't think they knew what they had, and then
oh
over
yeah,
time, the marketability of it basically said, "Well, we have to revamp it." And obviously, you know, with the animation with Arcane, I mean,
uh,
they're definitely killing it right now.
oh man, this is a different podcast. Um,
Yeah, no, that's that's one of those things I was talking about. Like, we're a part of the Lore Keeper stream team, so you guys have had a few Lore Keepers on here. Well, and you're part of the Lore Keepers too with the Coffee and Cultures podcast,
I
but
mean at this point, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, basically, that's probably what I'm gonna do once the new season. I'll probably go a little bit over to Arcane lore for a little while once the new season comes out because I think that would be a fun change of pace for a little bit too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, this is now a League of Legends lore podcast. So, yeah, okay. So, okay. Well, moving on. Okay, so,
yeah, moving
yeah,
on,
we can definitely talk about that later.
for
Um,
sure, for sure. I'm sure they
uh,
want to hear more about League. I mean, not League, not League. Oops, my
oops,
bad.
up.
I'm sure. Yeah, yeah. Sarcastically, I'm sure they would want to hear more
Yeah,
about
yeah,
League.
yeah, yeah. Genshin Legends, League of Impact. I love it.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so thanks for sharing. So let's get into Genshin stuff. So, before
Yeah.
we talk about our topics, I want to know about you. What about Genshin Impact draws you the most?
Okay, so imagine if you would a while back me watching YouTube videos. By the way, marketing works, guys. I don't know. There's no way of really proving it, but sometimes marketing actually works. The first ever Genshin experience I had was it was Hu Tao's like character showcase essentially. And it was an advertisement. It was just like her speaking about her character and I was like, "Oh, this character is really cool looking." I'm like, "What is this game about?"
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized it was a game that my roommate had been playing for quite a while. And I was like, "Oh, well, who's this character?" He's like, "Oh, you missed her banner." And I was like, "Oh,
Oh,
well, what does that mean?" First of
no,
all,
right. I only
because
know
I
League
never
of
played a
Legends.
gotcha.
What does
Yeah.
that mean?
Yeah, it was kind of a funny thing. He explained to me, he's like, "Oh, well, characters only like run for a limited of times, and you don't aren't guaranteed the characters." And I was like, why would anyone ever play that? Little did I know, much later, afterwards, there started being a lot of, Discord I was in with some friends, they started posting a bunch of stuff about, Raiden Shogun, and, like, everybody was freaking out about her pulling a sword out of her cleavage, but I was like, "This character is really well designed." I really think that the aesthetic is really fun. I kinda liked Genshin when I learned about Hu Tao. Maybe I'll actually give it a try. And I'm like, well, so is this character already ran? They're like, no, no, she's the upcoming character. You should probably join and start getting like in-game currency, start getting primos. And I was like, oh, okay, well. And so I started the last week of like, or maybe the second last week of Yoimiya's banner, her first run.
Hmm.
And that was kind of my Genshin experience. And most of those friends don't even play anymore. So
Sad. That is
I
sad.
know, right? I
Join
gotta call them
us.
out for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I mean, hey, there's
I
that
always
like
joke it
returning
was like
bonus, right? Like,
I always joke it's like I joined at the height of Sword Boba mania running wild, you know?
Oh, I love it. Yeah. Yeah, so you got into that. Like, so what made you want to start like streaming? Like, what do you do on your stream? What is your stream about?
So, I mentioned before, like, I guess I've always kind of, so at even, I'm a theater kid background. I did a lot through high school, college.
Mm-hmm.
I do admire people that are, doing VA work. Like that was always something that was very interesting to me, and
Oh,
I've definitely done a little research here and there on that. But everybody always told me going through Starbucks, like you have a voice for radio and stuff like that. You're very entertaining. You should do something with that, and to me, it was like I just needed kind of like a hobby after, I had some life changes and stuff. So I decided to join Twitch and everything just as an outlet to kind of be social because I am very introverted, believe it or not.
I don't
So
believe
like,
it. So
going, I know, right?
I'm just kidding.
Very
I'm
good
just
at masking.
kidding.
No, but yeah, that's kind of what started my Twitch journey. And obviously, when you start Twitch, you kind of aren't really. I wasn't playing League yet, so I was like I said playing TFT, and I think was playing Skyrim. I think I still have some Skyrim clips,
Wow.
and what was the other one? Oh man, I can't even remember. It was a lot of experimentation. Oh, I tried to play classic games for a little bit too, and I
Uh
figured out that most classic games are mostly a speedrunning community. So
oh
I was like,
yeah.
I'm not very good at being.
Yeah.
I like
That's
talking
hardcore.
and
Yeah.
yeah, it is. No, it's really cool though. Like my buddy's like a huge Metroid speedrunner guy. He loves
Oh.
it. But I just love watching, honestly, and I like talking to people. So it ended up clicking, and here I am every week talking about Genshin lore, and I'm on a podcast about Genshin almost I guess we're kind of sneaking up on 2 years.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so do you have like a favorite like bit of lore or like part of the story from Genshin overall that you
Ooh.
really like, and why is that like your favorite? Like lives rent free in your head forever kind of. Like I love this
Yeah, you
part.
got the hard hitting question there. Let's see. I don't know. Like, so for me, I do as we might talk about. I think we're going to talk a little bit maybe about Yaimiko later. That was something that I think sort of lived rent free in my head. I just was like kind of like throughout the story, I was like, she's never really honest with us, but like we're totally on board, right? And like then I started like thinking, I'm like, I knew a bit about Kitsune. Like I said, I like folklore. I actually really like vampires. So like I wrote like a whole
Oh,
dissertation. Well, not dissertation. One of my college papers where I was on vampires in cinema, which is a really dorky thing to admit. But
that's
um,
awesome.
I'm I'm I have a degree in screenwriting. Well, it's communications and then a minor in screenwriting.
Oh,
But
cool.
so yeah, so we did that, and, I guess what I'm saying is, like, so I knew a little bit about, Kitsune being energy vampires and then some of the stuff from, like, anime, so, um, I don't know, like, I kind of like one of those things, like, we talk about and joke on my channel. I have like, a shiny baseball cap,
Uh-huh.
and we call it our tinfoil cap, and we put it on when we talk about crazy theories,
Oh, geez.
and I think one day I was just like, "I don't think Makoto's real." And we kinda went down that road for a little bit, and kind of like saying like, well, she could just be a segment of Abe later on we started talking about, and I don't know. So like one of my favorite theories is that the Fatui are all dead, like,
Oh
and that
yeah, we're
they're
we're
just
gonna talk about that. We're gonna
certain
talk about that.
characters are. Oh, for sure. I think that some of the characters are just former segments of like, well, so you. I don't want to spoil the new one, but I did play the beginning, and I know you played the little bit
Oh,
of the
I finished
beginning,
it.
and there. Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know the rest of it really, but I do know that there was some mentions about samsaras. And so one of my viewers had this really interesting thing recently.
Spoilers, by the way.
Um yeah, spoilers, that possibly were on like our sixth samsara or something.
Right.
Um playing through, and I was like, well, so what if they're just characters left over from some of the other samsaras? Like, what if, like, yeah, like, some of the Fatui are just a bunch of people left over? So like, I don't know. That's just something that lives kind of rent free in my head. Is that if there's parallel universes, or even like the Traveler maybe being modeled after Lucifer because Paimon is a demon, and there's like a bunch of like stories with that being called like a we'll talk about that. We'll talk
Yeah,
about it.
yeah.
So
We'll
there's
get
that's
to
a
it.
lot of my favorite theories right there. I really like Wei and Chill with Aster and Ashikai
Oh my!
and
I
Islands. All
want to
those
talk
guys
about
are amazing.
Ways more recent video about the biggest plot twist in Genshin.
Oh my god.
I
No, Wei is like 6, 7 head. I can't even
It's
keep up
crazy.
sometimes. Like, I have to go watch it a couple times to be like, "Dude, this is genius. This is just
I
genius."
love. Okay, we're gonna talk about that. Okay, so okay, well, your favorite thing, it turns out, is a lot of things that go into other things
Oh,
that go
yeah.
into other things. So that's great.
Well,
Um,
if you wanna know, I will say this, if I wanna comment on one thing,
yeah.
if we're gonna talk about the Ars Goetia earlier, what got me down the lore trail and maybe is my favorite thing was I remember now. This is probably the one that still lives in my heart a little bit. I don't know if I believe it relevant anymore, but
Mm-hmm.
it was about Kaya being an abyssal lector. I think
Mm,
first started out him being abyss mage just because of some of the stuff, but like his wording on some of his skills and then like some of his animation, and I was like one day, eh, believe it or not, before I started going full on with lore, and I think before like maybe even Min really did either, she was still kind of doing Animal Crossing a little bit and transitioning into the Genshin.
mm-hmm.
We just would talk a lot in my stream about stuff, and then one day I was like, what if there's a peacock demon? And so like I googled peacock demon, and sure enough there was, and I don't know, I started going down this trail of like what if there's certain people just sort of pulling the strings in the story? What if they're like sort of like four horsemen of the apocalypse? And we kind of went down this trail of like Gnosticism and religious themes and stuff. And I was like, all right, well my channel is basically just a lore channel now. So
That's great. Yeah. So yeah, we'll pull a couple of those strings today, I think. So,
oh, for
um,
sure, for sure.
so last question before we jump into the main topics. Um, who is your
Mm.
favorite playable character at this moment and why?
Well, I'm glad you specified playable because that list could get
Yep,
really
yep,
long.
yep. Playable, playable.
I mean, let's just before I answer that question, there are a lot of NPCs that have just been killing it lately with the voice talent. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, like I'm talking about
Clothar.
Emmy.
Haha.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah. Dude, that laugh. Oh my gosh. Like he was unhinged. He was so good.
Yeah.
And Dunrizard, there's been so many. And Marco played one, the music man from what is it? Fontaine. I can't think of the names. Dvorak.
Oh,
Yeah, so
Dvorak. Yeah,
that was a really
Marco
good one.
Meatball played it. Right, right, right.
Yeah, yeah, love Marco. Okay, yeah. So to answer your actual question, yeah. Shit. So I really, it's funny enough. I started out as a Kokomi main, so like
Oh,
Kokomi's always going to be in my heart a little bit. I wouldn't say she's like my favorite character, but I would say that one is like near and dear to me.
okay.
Um, I would say just given all the VA's like involvement and also me pulling C6 Ito, I'm kind of an Ito main, so it's really hard to
Oh, see.
say
Oh, so you have C6.
otherwise. I have a C6
I mean, okay.
Ito, which
It's so funny that you say that because, like, if you're talking about English voice actors, Ito is the top. it for me. Like,
Oh,
you know,
for
his
sure. Max
delivery is
is
amazing. Yes, Max
oh
is
my gosh.
phenomenal.
If you told me that most of that was improvised, I would probably believe it in the sense that he's just so good at it. Like I'm sure he was given some direction, but like he just owns the character. I don't even know if it's really Ito or if it's Max to be real because he's like sounds like a big kid and he just has a lot of fun with it. So and you know TM Revolution is the Japanese voice actor. So
Yeah.
it's like what how is that even fair? Like you know you have like good VAs across the board.
Yeah.
Even the Chinese VA is
Um
incredible. The
my
Korean VA delightful.
my favorite Japanese female voice actress is Raiden Shogun's voice actress.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's Sawashiro Miyuki. And what's it
Uh-huh.
called? My favorite Japanese male voice actor is not in the game, and I really really hope he comes eventually. But
Who's it?
it is Koyasu Takehito, and he is Dio in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
They even if they don't like give him which they could very well do it. I mean, Fischl exists, right? So like they could
exactly.
do another character like Fischl. It would be so easy to do a toonie like that. No, they should totally. Like that guy is so good. So it's funny you say that because I would say like as far as like I mean, Ayaka's Japanese
Mm-hmm.
voice actress is incredible. She does like Yor from
Yep,
Spy
yep,
Family
yep.
and what was
Demon
it? I think
Slayer.
yeah, Nezuko, yeah.
No,
So,
not Nezuko.
yeah,
I
no,
think the butterfly girl,
no,
Cho.
it's, yeah, no,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
it's the butterfly girl. You're right. I I I love that VA so much, and she does a
yeah.
great job playing Ayaka. That's another so I would say Ito probably Ayaka is a second favorite character, maybe? There's
Nice.
so many good characters.
There is, and that's
Um,
why this is such a hard question. Where whenever I ask it,
I
most
could
people
tell
pick
you,
five. So that makes sense.
I if I wanted to stir a little controversy, I would say I'm not a huge Kaching fan, but that's just because she
Oh,
ruins my 50/50s, but
well, I was gonna say she's near and dear to me, but
no,
I
no,
guess
it's
I
okay.
shouldn't mention
No,
it
it's
anymore.
funny. No, like, it's so funny. I, like, always find people it's like I'm like, "Oh, yeah." Like, somebody will raid me and they'll be like, "Oh, what's your favorite, Genshin character?" And I'll be you know, it's like that's what she asks you, like, "Who do you main? What do you like
Yep,
to
yep.
play? Who's your favorite?" And, like, it's always, like, every single time. It's funny because chat makes fun of me. It's like, "Oh, Kaching," and I'm like, I just it's always just if it's not Kaching, it's the mains. Like, everybody's just,
I'm curious. Like,
coming in here.
did the people that say that have they been playing since like around day one? Because
That's
Kaching
a good
was the most
question.
like not only was she the most useful for traversal at the time, but she had this really cool, acrobatic. I don't know. She has a lot of agility. Her playstyle is very like fast, and it kind of feels different when you're playing her when she was the only character that could kind of do that. Because I've been playing
She
since like
does
day
have a
one,
unique
right?
hit.
Yeah, and
She
she
does have a
has
unique
that
hit.
uh like slash 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 really cool anime kind of vibes. So she was my I think she was my first 5 star. So um
So
that's why she's
it's
stuck to me.
just like okay, so I'll lay the groundwork a little. I have C5 on my NA. I have C4 on my EU.
Kaching.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I have
So
C4 on
it's
my
not that I
thing.
don't love her. I just if I feel like if I encourage it, she won't go away.
It's so funny. Oh my, it's funny because
As
you're
I
like
always joke, it's like
it's not that I
oh,
don't
go ahead.
like her. I just get her a lot when I don't want her. Like,
Wow, well, yeah, so it's like I always joke with Chum, like, it's like I tried to get Yanfei to get a restraining order, but she's like my honorary girlfriend. It's just like I kinda because lately, okay, so like I'm on a streak right now of including people's I've pulled for like viewers.
mhm.
I 12 50/50s one in a row, right? And
Wow.
so I'm thinking that Kaching is just killing the other people that are trying to like spoil my 50/50 now. That's just headcanon, really.
Oh, well, there you go.
So,
I mean, hey,
mm,
you know,
so maybe
it's
maybe it's
kind of
all right.
good.
I
Yeah, it's kind of
also
good.
made a bet if I see 6 around NA, I said I would build her and probably main her, but
Oh, I like that.
mm,
I
I'm just
will.
hoping that last little con doesn't come all around too
Uh,
soon.
hey
I'm
man,
still building
I'm
Nita.
I'm just hoping at this point if I lose any 50/50s, I get Dia. That's what I want because
Oh,
yeah,
dude.
Dia's
Yeah,
Dia's more or less my main of
I'm
my NA
still
account.
chasing I'm still chasing that C4 Mona, for that crit, chance and everything,
Right.
and,
Wait, do you have
I'm
2
also
accounts?
I do. So during the Ayaka is Forever account,
Uh-huh.
or for, instance, I created an EU one to play with some of my friends over in Europe.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
Um,
my main
I
is
also have
Asia, and
an
I have an NA account.
There you go. Well, so I also just started an Asia account to play with some of my friends in Australia.
Yo, let's
So,
go.
yeah, I'm not too far along. I think I'm only like level 10 on that one, but I'm just basically
Mhm.
collecting stuff so I can feed my gacha addiction in between my pulls on my NA. So,
Right? You gotta stop yourself sometimes, and the best way to do that is by doing more of it, but, like, in a more
yeah,
responsible
like this
way.
account doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Just pull it on this account. It's
Just
fine. You're never even gonna build the character. It's fine.
right? So, yeah, yeah, I was living in, Japan when I started the game, so, like, I was there for
Get
2
out of
years,
here.
and so Asia account, and then I moved here, a couple months ago, so I started an NA
Or
account.
were you teaching or you had work or
No,
you just
I
from
mean, I'm from America. I'm living in Canada now,
Mhm.
in Vancouver, and
Nice.
I speak Japanese, and it was my major in college. I taught people in Japanese. I facilitated workshops in Japanese and mentored people in Japanese. So I speak Japanese,
Get
safe to
out of
say.
here.
Um, and yeah, so I just that's why I care about the Japanese voice actors a lot as well. I
Oh,
actually know them
oh,
better than the
that's
English ones, but since I'm
wonderful.
doing English voice acting now as as a freelancer, I'm learning more and more about the industry. So it's something
Well,
we could
I
definitely talk
always
about.
say the pretentious thing, because like, I guess it's just one of those things I treat Genshin that's kind of the perspective, like, having a writer brain, I tend to try to relate pop culture and all that stuff, so, like, when I watch anime, it's not that I don't like the English dubs, I love them, I think that sometimes translation things gets, for cultural, location, like, and rationalization, localization, that's the word I was looking for.
Right.
Some stuff gets lost in the translation, so it's
It
kinda like
will.
watching,
Yeah.
like, say, Parasite dubbed. It's like, I think it loses the meaning a little bit. It's not a criticism so much, you should still enjoy the movie or enjoy the media that you're consuming, but if I don't feel like reading, I'll turn it on. Honestly, I'm watching Hunter right now,
Mhm.
English dub because the English dub is so good.
Oh
It really
yeah.
is. And I can just kinda put it on while I'm doing other stuff, so
I think Christina V is Killua, right? Right. Who's
I believe so. I
yeah,
bel
yeah.
Keith Silverstein, Zhong Li is, the clown guy, I can't think of his name at the
Oh,
moment.
Hisoka.
Yeah,
Oh,
Hisoka.
Christina
It's
V. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, Hisoka. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, him as Hisoka is, I mean, it's creepy. It literally he's because he has such a very beautiful and soothing voice, and then he says, like, really creepy things and, like, licks his lips, and you're
Yep.
like,
And you're
I
like,
wasn't
"Man, keep
prepared
this
for this."
man away from the children," basically, right?
Ex
Like, yeah.
Yeah, because he says some pretty sussy things sometimes
Oh
about,
yeah, 100%
the
about
main character.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's oof, yeah, it's interesting.
Oof.
Um, but yeah,
Shout out Keith, man, you're amazing, you're amazing. I love you,
please
dude.
stay away from my children. All right, so but
I will
yeah,
have order.
oh nice, that's nice. Yeah, so it's funny that you mentioned that specifically. I'll mention this last point before we move on to our topics for the day. But like Phoenix Wright, um,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, like so Phoenix Wright takes place in Japan. It's a game about being a lawyer if you don't know about it. And like they are in Japan and they're doing like stuff in court, like you're a lawyer and you defend your client and all this stuff. But in the English localization, they're in LA or they're like in America and
Yeah, yeah.
things just don't make sense because everything is very Japanese. So they say like
Well, the legal system is completely different.
right. Well, legal
Like
system. Well, the legal system itself in Phoenix Wright is very also just like not
well, yeah, that's
realistic.
true. Yeah,
But
you're right,
so it
it's
doesn't
not.
really, yeah, it doesn't really like matter
You
in
can't
that
just yell
sense.
objection whenever you feel
Yeah,
like
exactly. But
and you
they
have
say
to
things
present your
like
evidence beforehand. You
it's
can't just surprise people with all the that's such a movie thing. You can't surprise people with evidence. That's not
well, like for example, they say like let's go get where they get. wait, okay, I can't. I lost the specific example, but I remembered another one in Pokemon, in the original Pokemon.
Mm,
Uh,
yeah.
Onigiri, the rice balls, they call them jelly donuts because
Yeah.
there's
They did
no.
that in yeah, in
Yeah,
Pokemon, it's like, "Oh, a jelly donut," and I'm like, That's rice."
that's
Even I, as a kid, knew that
hello.
was
That is,
rice.
excuse me, that's rice. I'm sorry.
I was like, and then you know how that's confusing as a kid because I didn't know too much. Like, okay, so being from Louisiana, I always tell you, part of the reason I think I steered towards the occult a little bit is I went to a private Catholic institution, so like there was always like interest in supernatural things, right?
Hmm.
But like it's so funny being so sheltered and not really like Louisiana's fairly homogenous. We do have like a big Vietnamese community, but like as a kid, outside of my own like sort of background, I didn't really get to experience a lot of other cultures. So like,
Mm.
I really was like, I like legitimately as a kid was like, do they put like jelly in rice in Japan? I was really confused about it as a child. I was like, and when he bites into it, why is there not jelly
Yeah,
coming out of
where's the
it?
jelly? It sounds delicious, but
Uh, this is nuts. Oh man,
yeah. So
they're
stuff like
wrong for
that.
that.
Yeah, it's stuff like that that like I totally understand like what you're talking about. Um,
Or what is it? The in Sailor Moon, Neptune and Uranus
oh yeah.
being cousins.
Well, so
That's so
yeah. Well,
problematic.
this, okay. Well,
I
20
understand
years
why, but
ago, 20 years
yeah,
ago
that
was a very
it was a
different.
long time ago,
Yeah, it
but
was a very different
yeah,
climate
still,
socially. So
yikes,
yeah.
yikes.
So basically, if you ever go back to watch the old shows, just you should probably do some research first. Is all I can say. Um,
Oh, for sure, for sure.
but nowadays, it's not as big a deal, right? But to
No,
tie it back into Genshin, I think one interesting aspect of language in Genshin is the way that they refer to certain things like visions and delusions, or like in the other languages
yeah.
are God, the eye of God, and the eye of evil. I think evil eye or something like that. And so there is like a direct understanding by looking at the word what it means, in Chinese or Japanese, but when you look at it in English, it's more vague, or it can encompass more
Because
things.
there is like a very specific term in that Japanese culture that they refer to it as like the god's eye, but
Yeah,
like it's called the god's gaze in ours, right? Like it, and so it's not like something that directly translates, or at least the concept doesn't.
right.
So I was kind of reading a little bit about that not that long ago. It's very interesting. Some of partially, if you want to see where the story is going, sometimes if you want to do a little research and be sneaky about it, see how lines change.
Yeah, yep,
Uh,
yep, yep. I love looking at that.
because like there's not to really like plug, I guess, to another streamer, but like there's a streamer, Slayer Jules, who's speaks Chinese, like fluent Chinese, and she'll point out like a lot of, well, this is not really a good translation because it doesn't really capture the context of like this or this. Like really, it should be more of this and that because she plays in Chinese, and she'll like, kind of explain the differences in the English like translation, or at least the words you have at the bottom of the screen. And like
Right.
it's like I think a lot of this is hurried,
Well,
and it's unfortunate for them, but
I heard like that sometimes it actually ends up working in our favor the way that they localize some of these things,
it
because it
does.
means more to us, or at least a Western like English. Because English is able to encompass all these other cultures and languages, through our research, it's much easier to find how these things connect, etymologically, versus
Mhm.
like in Chinese or Japanese, because they have to change the concept into Chinese or Japanese, to
Oh,
get it across.
exactly.
But then when we say it in English, we're like, oh, that sounds, German, or that sounds like this, and that sounds like Norse or whatever, and we like go look it up, and we find out all these things that could be connected to what they may be referring to, that in Asia they don't understand at a glance the way that we can. So I think it's funny because it works both ways. I have a feeling, I don't know if this is true, and I'm sure stuff slips through the crack, but like I think there is a lot of things that I think they're really careful about how they translate a lot of the localize a lot of the words. Like they
They
have
have
to
to
be.
be.
Yeah, they have to be
Well,
because
they
of
really
that.
have to be. Was because like, we talk about I mean, just how we always want more from, like, think about it this way, right? We always like say like, "Oh, we want more Kaya, or we want more of this character." And it's like they can't. if they give us more on that character, we're gonna guess the ending, I guarantee you.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like they don't wanna get that far. They have like a 5 we still have 4 or 5 years left of this game,
Yeah. At
at
least.
least,
Yeah.
and they don't wanna, like, give us too much, which is, like, why we always are like, "Man, this is very unsatisfying." Because even though they confirmed some of these things, it just there's so many more questions that they presented, and I'm still lost, right?
Right.
But we vouldn't be here talking about it otherwise,
Yeah.
right?
That's why I think there are characters like anybody related to Kanria,
Mhm.
Venti himself. Like there's so many characters if we get any chunks of lore with them that is about them and what they've been doing or what they've been up to or what they've accomplished, we're gonna know like we're gonna jump really far ahead. So even
Oh,
like
yeah.
even that Nahida, like we learned about Nahida, boom, that shit changed everything. Like that was like that was just crazy. So
We got essentially the, have you ever watched, Haruhi Izumi? We got the endless
uh,
8 of, like, Genshin. That's what I was like,
no,
people are like
dude.
I'm like, "Is this reference lost on everyone?" I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
the Haruhi Suzumiya, the festival, right? The fireworks. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Oh my
yeah.
gosh, that was some
Like, it
crazy
literally
anime.
like, 8 episodes, if you actually were watching when that one came out, it was, like, the most unnerving thing
Dude,
because
I
it
was
was like
you know how many times I restarted thinking I picked the wrong episode? You know what I
right,
mean?
no, me too,
Yeah,
me too.
like I watched it like chronological release order because there's a difference. No, not chronological. Release order, not chronological order. I watched it in
Yeah,
release order,
yeah.
so it's very confusing. And then I had to go back
Very.
and watch it in chronological order, and it was very confusing. But yeah, Samsara, this
If you're a little lost in chat, so it's about this girl that gets so bored that she basically becomes god of her own universe, essentially. So they have to kind of keep her entertained, otherwise the world can just sort of descend into chaos. She doesn't know that, so it's kind of like keeping her in the dark. There's this one episode or eight episodes that literally just restart the same day. And they never said anything to the viewers about it. They don't really recap it in the beginning. You just kind of go into the episode watching the same episode. There's slight differences. You have to pay attention. Like the clothing might be slightly different or this. So Genshin kind of also has that in the Samsara, and I thought that's why instantly I was like, all right, what are the little differences if the day is different? Like what's going on here and here, and but they
mhm.
don't really address it because there's only like one character, the girl who's like essentially a robot, I
Yep,
believe,
yep, yep.
like an alien
And she
robot
remembers all the cycles.
every single day.
And there was something like there's 8 episodes, but there's something like 14 million cycles or something like that.
Yeah,
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 it was
she went
crazy.
through a bunch of them, a bunch of them. So
So
I
yeah,
you
we got
poor
training.
Nagato.
We got Nahida's Archon Quest training when we were younger and watching this show.
Well,
Um,
and Genshin, that's what so I say we always take the writer's perspective. Genshin, the writers, the people that create the show, they're anime nerds just like us for real.
oh,
So just
they are otakus, tech
yeah,
otakus who saved the world. So
otaku save the world. Yeah.
all right, so that was a very long intro, but I
Oh
think we
yes.
talked about a lot of things that are relevant, some that aren't, but also just like a little bit about our backgrounds and how we got into this. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was a nice chat. So let's get into our main topics for the day, which are three major topics. We of
Yes.
course we will be
Yes.
free to naturally progress the conversation into different paths, but typically we want to cover Gnosticism, segments, and Yaimiko. So slash Inazuma, I guess. So we will start with Gnosticism. And to do that, I would love for you to begin by explaining to us, what is Gnosticism and how does it tie to how does it tie to Genshin?
So, Gnosticism, right? I'm just gonna straight up read the Wikipedia. I'm not even gonna lie to you guys. It's mostly because if I try to explain it, I'm probably gonna go down too many rabbit holes.
Yeah, I get
So if I
that.
just read all somebody that's already compiled this for me, basically it means having knowledge, right? So I guess what you might be able to base relate to in the game is that they have things called gnosis, right? Gnosis literally just is it literally is a word from our world. It just means spiritual, like knowledge of spiritual mysteries or secrets. So essentially, Gnosticism, I can sum it up without going into the history too much. I guess I could. It's the idea that your body is essentially unnecessary. What you do didn't really matter. It doesn't really matter in your life in the mortal realm. Essentially, like it. There's this other world that's a spiritual world. So we were talking about the God's gaze or the God's eye. It's the world that we can't perceive, right?
Mm.
So we have the natural, like, science only studies like the observable world, right? Gnosticism basically was like, well, the body, the flesh is papega. You're never gonna like you're never going to basically get salvation. You are doomed, essentially. But if you achieve spiritual enlightenment, or learn secret spiritual knowledge, you can transcend. You can basically save yourself and purify your spirit. A lot of religions go with this concept. It's really like the basis in kind of like Greek. It was the formation, like it was the basis of a lot of like cults in Greece. You guys know uh, Pythagoras or Pythagorean theorem. We had to learn in
Oh
like
yeah,
high school, middle school. He had his own little cult. But
a
he,
triangle
yeah,
cult.
yeah, basically though, because they also have stuff like Dermine numerology and the idea that shapes and stuff can influence our world that you could basically like what's beyond what we see essentially. Divine numerology is a little different, I guess, but like it's kind of like the principle that there are certain numbers that are assigned to divine influences over the universe, like perfect numbers that essentially it's almost like programming. If you guys are familiar with programming,
Mm.
like let's say we have like you're all probably sitting in a computer chair right now or sitting in a chair at somewhere. You have chair.exe, right? Um, that's the true name of chair, right? Obviously, we call it chair. Maybe it's called something else to the gods, like Smorblaf or something. But if you know
Smorblaf.
that and you can invoke Snorblaf, you can manipulate the form of it. You can choose how to change it. So we have a bit of that going on with the Irminsul trees in a way, I
Mm.
think, because it seems like it's kind of like its own little database, right? But that's kind of getting a little away from, I guess, what Gnosticism is. It's kind of along the same idea, but like I said, it's a tradition based in that because it's secret knowledge. It's stuff that can't be comprehended by the observable universe,
Mm.
or the observable world.
And
It's the spiritual.
so, how does that tie
Um,
into Genshin?
so as we kind of mentioned earlier, there are gnosis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Secret knowledge. I don't. So there's a lot of theories about what gnosis really are. I'm probably not going to go into that too much, but um, it's almost like everybody kind of has their own mini gnosis with visions. I'm not really sure that that matters. I have a whole theory that visions don't really matter actually, but that's kind of getting a little far from it too. Some of the influences though, I would say we get a lot of real world history. Um I think just an example giving like Sumeru, right?
Right.
We have in our world throughout history, like I said, it goes back to the Greek. So if you can perceive like mythology of Judaism and like pre-Christianity along with like the Greek pantheon, that's
Mm.
a lot of the sort of occult beliefs or like myths that come from that. That tends to go into the writings of Gnosticism. So what it basically was the flourishing of like Christian groups that essentially said, no, these are the secrets that Jesus brought us. Like, or that's kind of how it used as like a religion. I mean, Gnosticism has kind of always existed in one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so we have like Persian Empire, right? Byzantine Empire.
Right.
Um, that's kind of what's going on in a lot of ways in Sumeru is there's a divide in ideologies. So I think they are taking a lot of real world examples, like things that happened in history, stuff that happened in mythology, and it's influencing the game. Particularly, what like Istanbul was Constantinople, then it became Istanbul, then it went back to Constantinople. Or, well, no, it's the other way around. I'm pretty sure, but um, Sumer is a lot like Sumeria or like Istanbul or even like sort of like Persian Empire in a lot of ways. And the Byzantine was more of the Greek led Catholic Church, there was a schism essentially with the Holy Roman Empire
Hmm.
and the Byzantine, which was the Greek led. It turned into the Greek Orthodox Church. Um, a lot of the teachings of the Greek Orthodox Church were Gnostic because it was more of the mystic aspects of the church, more of the traditional ideas. And then later on, if you guys, I see, like I said, I went to private high school, it was a Catholic school.
Right.
I was, this was hammered down, but one of the difference that's happened with Protestantism later was the fact that they had a problem with these things called annulments, no, indulgence, or I don't remember. The fact is you could basically pay to get out of sins. The idea
Oh.
was like, "Oh, I did something wrong. I can just fix it by getting this piece of paper that says I'm absolved from the act that I did." So only the rich could basically be absolved of their sins at a point.
Oh gosh,
And
that's
so
terrible.
yeah, Martin Luther kind of had a problem with that. So that stems from Gnosticism though, because
Mm.
the church had to revamp a lot of their ideas that your actions actually mattered. So I think it influences the game in a little bit. So this is what I'm saying on this is like there's a lot of gray area that I like that they do with perspective in Genshin because it's like, well, there's a defined good and evil. We're supposed to be taught that the Abyss Order is evil and that Celestia is this governing power. But they kind of almost paint it like it doesn't really matter what you do on Earth. Like Celestia just decides your fate for you. And so if somebody already has decided your fate, what's the point, right? Like decision making sort of becomes, I mean, you could make decisions, but if you're ultimately going to end up at the same fate, it's kind of problematic, right?
Mm.
It kind of takes the joy, like for taking sort of the idea of like, well, you have free will, but you kind of don't, right? Um, I
So
think
we're
that a
talking
lot of
about nihilism, fatalism.
yeah, basically, it's yeah. I think that's like Mona's storyline kind of touches on that a lot. It's like, well, I could tell people their fate
Hmm.
essentially, but people usually don't want to hear it. And then like if you know your fate, can it change it? I think only if you have the will, unless you just accept your fate. I'm sure you basically end up there anyway, right?
Hmm.
But yeah, I guess to say a lot of the other sort of like influences would also be like the Ars Goetia has a little bit some of the like I said um
Okay, so tell us a little
spiritual
bit
stuff.
about the Ars Goetia now. Okay, because
Okay,
this is a long
okay. This
conversation no
is
matter how you slice it. So
this is
go
the
for it.
interesting stuff. This
Yes.
is the interesting stuff that Gnosticism sets up. So imagine if you would back in the day, right? You're King Solomon and you decide you're like God's go-to guy in the world, but you also want to basically enslave spirits, right? There's this thing called the Lesser Key of Solomon or the Ars Goetia. Let me, what Ars Goetia actually meant was really interesting. Let me see if I had that up.
Like
I
that,
must have.
like the meaning of the name.
Yeah. Oh, wait. Okay. So basically, just to recap, Gnosticism is a prominent hierarchical movement in the second season by the Christian Church, prior to pre-Christian origin, with Gnostic doctrine taught that the world was created and ruled by a lesser divinity. So you have demiurges essentially,
Hmm.
and we talk a lot about like the archons are basically demiurges.
Right.
There's also this book called the Book of Enoch, where there are angels that are appointed as governors over the world until the end times. Um, Enoch basically learns from God that the angels that were appointed to do this are going to be destroyed with all the humans on Earth. And so those governors, those angels that are basically on the world, kind of get wind of that, and they're like, "Oh, well, what's the fucking point then?" So they decide that they take mortal wives. They decide that they're going to just live like humans and drink and basically sin and be human.
Mm.
And that's kind of what we got with the archons, like almost directly. So that's a big Gnostic. That was really the big Gnostic takeaway for me. And going into that, they each have demon names, right?
Right.
That we get from the Ars Goetia.
Like Buer
So
and Barbados and Morax and right.
exactly those names. Paimon being one of them.
Paimon.
Um, Paimon, yes. Paimon is very interesting. We could
Paimon's a
talk a little
demon?
bit of yeah, right? It's insane. Why would you name a character a demon if they're supposed to be helpful? It doesn't even make sense. Um, I mean, there's also a lot of talk about summoning spirits in this game, especially recently,
Yeah, right.
and some of the quests, right? But Paimon, right? I'll give you a little rundown on Paimon. So this tome, the Ars Goetia, basically says all the ranks and legions that these demons command. Um, it's basically how to train your demon, essentially. Like you could basically summon a demon, ask them some questions, or ask them to do a task for you. How willing they are to comply. What's their basically their personality, what they look like. So uh Paimon, let's see here. We'll just go over powers, some of the things that Paimon's able to do. Uh I'll describe Paimon. Obviously, Paimon is actually little side note. Paimon is actually based off of a king from a neighboring country that didn't agree, I think, with essentially the it was either I think it was Judaism at the time. So they basically demonized him and said that Paimon was a demon.
Hmm.
And so this is actually based off of a real world king from a forgotten civilization, um, which kind of begs the idea of perspective
Right.
and how we demonize things, quote unquote. But yeah, they describe him as teaching like science and answering questions. If you guys don't know, mathematics and science for the purposes of this segment are considered witchcraft, same as astrology.
Oh,
Um, right? Crazy. Learning things is evil, kids.
yeah.
So,
Don't go to school.
but yeah, he basically would answer questions for you. Don't go to school. So he basically could answer questions regarding the waters, the winds. Basically, he would truthfully answer any question asked of him, as
Hmm.
long as he knew. Um, so also could reveal hidden treasures, um, knows of the going on affairs in the world that you are in, the ability to bestow basically any it's basically can create stuff out of nothing. Um, I think they also describe Paimon as someone who can breathe underwater for long periods of time. So
Fontaine?
there's some yeah. Well, we find Paimon in a lake,
Oh,
right?
that's
So
right. We do
and she
fish
apparently had
Paimon
been
out.
there for
That
a long time.
that is oh wait a second. I just like that's the first time I've heard that. That is like really creepy. Like,
Yeah, so if you guys want to look at this too, you could just Google Ars Goetia. It's like they have a wiki for it, and literally they list all the demons' powers and how to describe them. And a lot of it is the character, like I mean, Morax has some similarities. Barbados has a lot of similarities. We know Morax is Zhongli. We know that Venti is Barbados. So um
yeah.
it's really interesting stuff. If you got the time, you want a good read while you got some downtime, whatever you're doing in your life.
Um,
Um,
quick non sequitur. Um,
yeah.
the game starts off with us fishing like Paimon out of the
Hmm.
water, but
Yeah, yeah.
we don't actually start fishing in game until like a year and a half after release. So
No, that's
I
true. I
just
never
realized.
even noticed
Yeah,
that.
I just realized that. Like, oh, it's so funny.
Where did we get the rod from?
Dude, we must have had it the whole time.
I
Crazy.
guess so. That's
Yeah.
insane. Well, I
Otherwise, this
guess we
story
kind
would
of
have
did,
never
didn't
happened.
we?
Yeah. But
I guess
yeah.
they just assumed we were always fishing for ourselves and not other people.
Oh, there you go. Maybe there was no the catch yet. Um,
The
but yeah.
big
So
takeaway.
the big takeaway. Okay.
Oh, yeah, big takeaway though, I would say is there's a theory. I think it was either Wei or maybe Ashikai, maybe even Aster. I don't remember exactly. I hope I'm giving
One
the
of them.
credit to the right person. One of the greats, one of these like four lore archons, the greater lords, said that there was this theory that the traveler might be Lucifer. So um Lucifer's often attributed to the fallen angel that became Satan, essentially, in Christian mythology. Now, if beforehand, every demon, one of those things you have to take away is every demon was at one time an angel. So even these archons that have demon names, they could just be running a farce. Like Celestia might have fallen a long time ago.
Mm.
What we know is basically to be the heavenly powers or the heavenly principles might just be a facade. Um, Now it is kind of weird because if we or the sibling is Lucifer, because the big takeaway on that, I guess, long story short, is we're often described as the morning star or the evening star. One of the stream twins is described as the evening star. One is described as the morning star, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Both of those are names that are given or attributed to Lucifer. Um, One
Yep.
of the other characteristics that Lucifer is given is that he has the power to instantly he's insanely charismatic in the sense that people just fall in love when they see him. If you know, Traveler's got a little bit of riz going on, like
Oh,
everybody we meet
so
seems
much
to
Riz.
just they just fall in love with us, they just seem to do whatever they tell. They gotta just like wanna, oh, it's the Traveler,
They're like,
they perk
oh,
up and you're like,
here's my life story. I just met you.
yeah.
I trust you. Here's something I've never told anybody ever before. Okay.
Yeah, right. We got Shy Ayaka to be winking at us
All
now.
right. They're like, I'm a
Yeah,
wanted.
like
I started off as a wanted criminal in every country, but yeah, just tell me your life secrets, no problem.
we're just going around helping people, bestowing secret knowledge to others and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's very one for one in a lot of regards. So I don't know exactly what the end game is, but if our sibling is in charge of the Abyss Order, it kind of might be sort of telling in a lot of ways that maybe that is why we were summoned. And if you have the Ars Goetia saying that you could summon these things to do certain tasks, it's very curious.
Do we summon
And why,
Paimon?
yeah, right? And I guess what I would say is there's also a few other influences, like the hypostasis is something that's from Gnosticism.
Oh, their
Um,
names.
yeah, their name is it's basically an underlying state or underlying substance in the that is the fundamental of reality. Um,
Same.
yeah, right. So what does that mean? That's kind of a lot to digest. I would say this. There's also I want to say it's a way video where he theorizes that the hypostases are actually the dragon lords, and the dragon lords are actually thereby angels. Um
Oh.
which is interesting. I don't know if that's still real, but you could also attribute to whatever being trapped in the hypostasis, if it is just to contain something that has lived eons, cannot be destroyed, it seems like, because it's not in like a domain, it's an outdoor source. It seems to be bound to a circle,
Hmm.
right? And it just kind of regenerates after 3 minutes. So that's very curious in a lot of ways, but I would say that those boxes, right? Um, they even I think there's an interview they had with one of the writers or creators of Genshin, and they're like, they asked him about the boxes if it was like a reference to anything, and they're actually huge Neon Genesis Evangelion fans.
Right.
So yeah, a lot of the stuff is kind of there's a lot of Gnosticism in that as well. There's some Full Metal Alchemist references. The Philosopher's Stone is kind of a big thing.
Oh,
We
cool.
we just been learning about attributing blood to sacrifices for transitions. I'm kind of hoping that we aren't trying to create one big Philosopher's Stone or something. But hey, time's gonna tell, man. I have no
I
idea.
mean, there
That's
is a homunculus.
there is, and we do use quite a bit of alchemy.
Yes.
Um, I'm sorry, I just started rambling for a bit though.
No,
You
no.
have
This
any?
this is your this. You are the guest. This is
It's a
a
lot.
no. It's a
It's a
lot,
lot.
and then because it is a lot, that is why we will take a 5 minute break, which is
5 minute break. Yeah, yeah. We
yes.
should take a
It
break.
is it is halftime right now. So
Is it really?
yeah.
Oh my
So
gosh.
and
Time flies when you're having fun.
we still have two more topics to talk about, but we will
For
continue
sure, for
this
sure.
topic when we come back. When I want you to talk about your thoughts about the archons representing the seven deadly sins. So,
Oh yes,
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 so we
yeah,
will talk
yeah,
about
yeah.
that when we come back. So, everybody, 5 minute break, and we will see you soon. Get some water, get a snack, and see you in a bit.
Another cup of coffee.
Get another cup of coffee. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back to One More Cup of Coffee. I am Josh, aka Jside. Joined with me here is MythicMageHat. So we were just talking
Hello.
about Gnosticism, right, Mythic?
Yeah. The
So
crazy goings on.
there is just so much involved with Gnosticism. Obviously, Gnosticism is connected to a lot of concepts, ideas, religions, and you know, just because Gnosticism exists and
Mhm.
Genshin mirrors a lot of it doesn't necessarily mean anything at all.
No, it doesn't. It
It could just
doesn't.
be inspired or whatever. But if we look to Gnosticism and we look in that direction, one thing that you did mention was that the seven deadly sins. And it's so funny because you were talking about Full Metal Alchemist just now too. So,
Yeah, that was kind of like
uh,
I was thinking it might be a good segue too.
yeah. So before we start talking about that, you wanted to address a question in the chat, right?
Oh yeah, no, Nia, I read that you said something. So I thought it was funny because they said that they can. It specifies that they can breathe underwater for long periods of time, but it never says that the Paimon can swim. That's the thing. And I think if it says that they can float, but it doesn't say that they can float on water or something. So like I don't know if that was intentional or not on Hoyoverse's part, but they definitely use a lot of inspiration. Um and I thought that was funny. That's why I had a good laugh about it too, because I thought the same thing, and I was like, "Oh wait, I guess they never specify that Paimon knows how to swim, though." It just says can breathe underwater for long periods of time. Oh no, it's sus as hell. No, it's sus as hell.
Yeah, well, it's Paimon. Paimon's existence is sus. Like everything about
Yeah,
Paimon's sus.
what
So
is a Paimon?
yeah, why is everyone so just okay with seeing something so unique? Like I don't know,
Yeah,
Pavet's
right.
crazy, but like
Barely
Paimon's kind of
anybody
crazy.
addresses it. They just kind of ignore her
Yeah,
sometimes,
they don't even know
or
what
when
she
they
is. They're like your flying
no,
fairy friend. You know,
she's a
is it food?
floating.
Like I don't like. Shangling wants to eat her. You know what I mean? Like crazy
Well,
stuff.
she did, like, butcher and cook us an extinct boar, so
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
Paimon's not very far off. Got it.
yeah, right, that's, like, one of the craziest things she said, like, "We should cook it up." I mean, like, down like I said, I'm from Louisiana, like, you see something crazy, sometimes you just wanna cook it up. They cook frog legs down here, it's crazy.
Right? You know what's
I'm not
funny?
saying they're good.
That thing with like the old boar from like a long time ago, like don't those boar just end up being in Dragonspine anyway?
Yeah, no, they do. It happens to be like, well, they were frozen in ice anyway, so like it didn't, which it kind of makes you wonder if there's a whole like commentary on like Vishaps, maybe if they're descendants of dragons, if they're not just like dinosaurs essentially,
Right?
and if we aren't like sort of talking a little bit, like maybe sort of hinting at the idea that there might be. I mean that kind of segues a little bit. So I think we're addressed with essentially an enlightenment or like basically a technological progression and then a vice and a virtue in each region. And so I think each archon is kind of a representation of that. And that's
Mm.
kind of how I've been reading the text that is the game. Because I still approach video games like an art form or like a literary work.
Mhm.
Um, like Kojima, the guy who created Metal Gear's, like video game is a high form of art, and I agree with that.
Yeah. Oh, I think so
No,
too.
it's not always done great. Some games are better than others, but I mean,
I
it's
mean,
still
it's
art is still art.
same with books, same with movies. And the cool
Exactly.
thing is that video games can encompass all of those things. A good video game can have a book, it
Exactly.
can be a movie, it can be a podcast, a radio show, whatever. Video games can have it all.
Mhm, mhm. I mean, it could be an opera, it could be voice
Yeah.
acting a video game
It,
character, anime, you know?
yeah, it's crazy. But
Uh
yeah, so you're looking at it, the story, and you're looking at these representations, and so what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I guess what the segue was there was like, I wonder if you had to speculate, Shejnaya, I guess when I was saying technological, I wonder if they're going to address some of the idea of like climate change or something like that in there. But
Mm.
that's neither here nor there. That's speculation. We'll get to some of the speculation. I'll lay down the groundwork of what the theory is so far. Right.
Mm.
So essentially, the way I've approached it is, like I said, I went down a rabbit hole with Kaya, saying, well, if and we've gotten other demon names too, by the way, recently. I could probably go in a little bit more later, but for brevity, I'll go over the archons real quick. So each archon has a demon name, which means that at one time, if they're trying to do this way, that they possibly might have been an angel. So I think that maybe when we talk about like perspective in Genshin, it's so important because they talk about how different stories are basically allegories for something that like really happened, right?
Right.
It's sometimes metaphor, sometimes some of it's got a lot of truth, and it's just a different way of recording the history of Tavat or beyond essentially sometimes. So I'm wondering if each archon, if we are in a samsara and if possibly going back to one of my viewers saying that maybe we've been through a bunch of them, I wonder if each region was its own little story in a lot of ways. So, um starting off with Mondstadt, the Mondstadt chapter, you have Venti, right?
Mm-hmm.
Venti is called Barbados. Venti represents freedom. He's the archon of freedom. Um, Now, I'm gonna go through all that. I would love to actually get you guys' feedback on this in chat, and I'm not gonna try to read like everything. So if I don't read it all, everyone's got an opinion on this. This is one of the things we talk about on my channel all the time, like all the time. And it's like I'm gonna tell you why I feel the way about all of these, and I'm gonna say this: the thing that you have to think and keep in mind is each one of these archons are capable of one of these seven deadly sins. It's who's most guilty. That's the important thing to keep in mind.
Mm.
So when I say that pride could literally be anyone, it could literally be anyone. But I think it's going to be the Sarista. But we'll get to that in a second. Um, the big thing is so we were talking about Venti being Barbados, possibly representing freedom. The concept of freedom is a little problematic in itself, right? Freedom creates leisure. It also creates apathy. So I think that that's why he also represents the sin of sloth. He's also he's referred to as the absentee archon. That he's not really involved, but he does come and help Mon when it's needed, right? He's just, I think, a little absentee on Celestia. He's not like, I think, as Team Celestia. He's a little lax on that sort of stuff, as you can see. So I would say sloth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about Full Metal Alchemist earlier, so obviously it'd be interesting if there are some connections there too. But if we go to basically, so I guess some of the concepts of freedom is that we have these sort of stories and the ideas they present. Venti freed the city of Mondstadt from tyranny. The previous ruler basically was this tyrannical dude, who basically had everybody in sort of like a feudalistic state. Um, and when Venti woke up and came back and was like trying to get an apple, like he was trying to barter basically an apple for a song. Hey, just give me an apple, I'll sing you a song or something. The guy sort of laughs at him. He's like, "You don't know how things work around here, do you?" And
Mm-hmm.
it kind of made him sad because he realized that like people still are bound, like just like we are in our everyday lives. Like we're never really truly free. We have to. I know this is going to get very philosophical, existential, so I apologize if it sends us all into dread a little bit.
Go for it.
But yeah, we all have to have day jobs, right? We all have to work to eat. There's always going to be someone who exploits people's freedom. It's unfortunate. Freedom is not an absolute thing. And I think that's kind of sort of the lesson in Mon because they're dealing with a dragon that knows that he can't also truly just be free. His heart has been corrupted. And so Venti tries to it's funny how music also is directly related to leisure. They go over that and I took a bunch of political science courses. What there was maybe at one point in my life I thought about being a lawyer, but there's Plato's Republic, right?
Objection.
Objection. Yes.
No, no, no. Just kidding. Sorry. Keep continue.
Oh no, you're good. um, yeah. So there's a talk about how music sort of influences and keeps the status quo and sort of keeps us basically content. Music is a very powerful point because it influences emotions. So what better person to represent freedom than a bard, so um
Mm.
yeah, that's kind of Mondstadt in a nutshell in a lot of ways why I think that Venti represents sloth. um the purpose of this usually and say how it related to Kaya originally was basically to try to get the seven deadly sins and to sort of say that if this is in fact us breaking seals,
Mm.
the Gnosticism connection is that in the Book of Revelations, which is one of the few. So I say like the Bible, like the King James Bible, right? It
Right.
it it doesn't keep Gnostic stuff in there. It kind of
Not
like
at
it
all.
filtered out.
Yeah.
It was like that mysticism crap, all that like occult stuff. It's not really kosher. Let's keep it out of there. But the Book of Revelations is one of the texts that made it into the book that is very Gnostic in its roots because it keeps a vague mystic idea about the end of the world. And as you know, we are heading towards a
Always.
cataclysm or apocalypse. So this was me basically saying, well, if each archon does this, maybe I can determine who these four horsemen or people that might be pulling the strings or making us stick to the script are. And I was kind of thinking Kaya was one of that at one point. But
Oh,
that's basically why I ended up thinking this way in the first place is really
I
the
see.
yeah. So this is what basically I called it horseman theory in the beginning, and then it just became each archon might represent a sin, and then we just kind of went over it for a really long time. So it becomes kind of a bit of a talking point in my channel a lot. So
Uh,
if you move on to Zhongli, I think you're given the idea of that people used to take what they want as time. There's in economics, there's the idea of good faith economics. Essentially, it's like when you don't have currency. If I have a bunch of furs and I want to trade you for a spear, right?
right.
But you need a bunch of furs now and you only have one spear made. I give you the furs now and you give me a few more spears later. It's just good faith, right?
Right.
It's bartering. Um, Zhang Li, in a lot of ways, made a lot of contracts, made a lot of deals to gain the power that he did. And that's why I think he best represents the idea of greed because he invented commerce. He
Oh,
invented
yeah.
Mora. Um, and so,
Despite
like,
not having any. Yep.
yeah, despite not, well, and that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Zhang Li's got so much riz and he's so greedy that he invented money and doesn't even need it. How crazy is that?
Yeah,
Like,
that
the man
is.
is the best con man to ever exist in the world. People are like, "Oh, Venti gets us to do stupid shit all the time." Yeah, but look at Zhongli. Everybody kisses that man's ass. He's penniless.
Oh my god, so good. Yeah.
Uh, but he is really greedy though. So if you play through his
I
Archon
mean,
quest,
also, right, he always like when they go to eat or whatever, he's like, "I'll take everything."
yeah, yeah, exactly. No, and I tried to tell people that I was like, "Well, isn't that gluttony?" I'm like, "No, but like even when he's planning his own funeral, the man does it big. He has no money.
uh,
It's not even a real funeral. We go to a flower shop. He goes like, "Oh, we'll just take all the flowers. It's fine. We'll sort through them later.
yeah.
You don't need all of them though. Why don't you just pick out the ones you want
Yeah,
now?"
it definitely fits greed more than gluttony for me too. Like,
Oh, for
yeah.
sure. And they say pride too, and I said, "Well, there are elements of pride to each character, and
Yeah.
I'll get to it. I promise I'll get to why I think the Sarista is. It's speculation, but I think it's a beautiful speculation. Um,
Oh, let's jump to that now because we got to move on to the other two topics. So,
oh, okay, okay, okay,
what is
okay.
the conclusion of this Seven Deadly Sin arc?
Okay. Well, to go through and assign the rest of them real quick, A would basically be gluttony because she consumes things. Consumption can be media, it can be culture.
Mm.
As we know that she likes sweets too. That's a little detail that they added in the game to basically, I think, her weapon's called engulfing lightning. There's a lot
Mm.
of little tidbits where I think people are like, oh, she's pride. No, it's like, I think that she's never satiated. That's the important part about gluttony. It's not so much eating things. It's just never being satiated, never being happy. And that's her to a T. And so if we go from that, Nihita is envy. She's jealous of Rugalivata. She's jealous of the other archons in a lot of ways because she never thinks she's good enough.
Mm.
She's always trying to live through other
She's
people,
also
right?
green.
She's also green. Yes. No, thank you. I was like, if you want to go with something very obvious, like she's green.
She's
It's
green.
crazy. Um, So you get past that, you start getting to like Fontaine. Well, we don't know enough yet about Fontaine. We don't know enough about Natlin yet.
Right.
But if I had to write the story, I would say that the opposite of justice, if it is a masquerade, I think that and it could go either way. I see what we're saying in chat. It could go either way, but
Mm.
this is my head canon. This is why I'm going to do it this way because it sets up a story that I want to write that's probably not right. But I think it's wrath is the opposite of justice, right? And I
Mm.
think that to basically not have like an order or to put the facade of a legal system, justice often is looked at as borderline. There's a thin line between justice and vengeance.
Oh,
And
I like
vengeance
that. Yeah,
is
that
a
one. Yeah.
wrathful sense of justice. So I think there's a very two side of a coin there. And then if you go to Natlin, it's kind of like, well, if you're gonna assign lust to somebody, I wonder this: if I give you the Gnostic background of saying that angels weren't supposed to have mortal wives, I don't know that there's a precedent so far for one of the archons having a child. I can't think of
Oh
one.
yeah.
So I'm thinking, what if it's possible that they had relations with a mortal or someone they weren't supposed to, if they're not supposed to bear children? Because maybe as an official or a representative of Celestia, their power is not supposed to be handed down. I don't know that that's going to be addressed or not, but it's a thought. And if I had to say, the Archon of Natlin, this is my headcanon. Okay,
Hmm.
look, let's just say this: little fan fiction has no basis in reality.
Yep.
If this is true, is it possible that Benny is the son of the Archon and Natlin, essentially?
Interesting.
If that's he's a demigod and that's why he's so unlucky.
Well,
Because they never explain the curse. We don't know Benny's parents. Um,
do you think
and he's
Vanessa could be tied to that?
Vanessa could. Vanessa could, I think. It's possible. And that would make a lot of sense on why he got left in Mon.
Why what if like
Oh,
the
Vanessa be the daughter. That's a good idea too.
Vanessa's the daughter of Murata, and then Vanessa's son is Bennett.
Y'all wrote that even better than me. But so that's the thing in Greek mythology, there's always a tragedy like that. Every time like Zeus couldn't keep in his pants, some poor mortal, half god had to suffer their entire life.
Hmm.
It it sucks, but like that's what happens. And if we're going to a very like Gnostic thing, there's a lot of Greek influence. There's a lot of pantheon influence like that. And that's kind of the thoughts there. So then we get to the Sarista, the conclusion of the whole thing. Why is the Sarista pride? Well, I think to basically in what I learned from my Catholic upbringing is pride always cometh before the fault. The best of intentions always are paved the path to destruction, essentially. The best intentions are the pathway to hell is I think what I was always taught or whatever. But essentially, um, why I think that's the case is that if you think that you are above God or that you know better or you're above everyone else and that your will is the most important one,
Hmm.
that's pride. That is the ultimate sin of pride. It's also basically they have a compassionate organization, a charitable organization that is looked at as diplomacy that's basically running it's a tied to one nation, but it's running the rest of the world and influencing the rest of the world. Um, it's mostly cruelty. It's not even it's saying it's compassion, it's cruelty essentially. But I don't think the Sarista is in the picture anymore. So what
Hmm.
I think is we why we haven't seen the Sarista yet. I think she's either encased in ice or she's dead. And my reasoning on that is I think that the Fatui is the council that is basically running Sneznaya as in the stead of the Archon and saying they're doing the Sarista's will. I think that Piero is basically the acting Archon. I think that they found a way to tap the power of the Sarista and they've assigned it to each of the Fatui.
Interesting.
And I think that's kind of like because we were given the idea that the Fatui are each on par with gods in one way or another.
So,
It's
what
even
about?
mentioned.
I know he's the newest, but what about Tartaglia and how he like talks about um following the Tsaritsa's basically like he believes in what the Tsaritsa believes in, so that's why he's with them.
Well, so it's kind of the noble lie you tell yourself. In a lot of ways, the Sarista, if okay, let's see here. You have a frozen encased a Sarista. If someone is saying that they are communicating with the Sarista and saying, well, this was the Sarista's will, he is living off of sort of the nationalistic idea of that. And the
Mm.
reason why I think that's the case is if you look at Russian history, Snezhnaya, if it follows a lot of Russian history, there was what was basically the Russian Orthodox Church
Hmm.
that ruled Russia for many, many years until essentially communism took over. And communism basically made the state into its own religion, essentially. You basically worship, it was secular, but you worship the state. I kind of think that that's going on in Snezhnaya. So it's kind of like believing in the ideal of the Sarisa. I don't know that Child's actually ever um, talked to her or anything. It's basically he was saved by someone who basically said that this was the will of the Sarista, that he join her and protect his family or whatever he's getting out of it.
Hmm.
But that's kind of what I think. Is essentially that it's more of an ideology. It's that she is the state essentially now, and I don't know if she's alive and just kind of imprisoned, and they're made her into a puppet. I don't know if she's frozen in ice. I don't know if she's dead, but I think that they've found a way to sort of basically run the country in her stead.
So you think? Okay.
That's the way I'd write it. I'm not
Yeah,
sure. This
yeah.
is just canon
I'm
in a
just so
lot of
curious to
ways.
see where you would keep writing it, but I guess that's a conversation for your stream. And
Yeah.
yeah, so thank you for sharing that theory with us. Man, that was like there's so much there. Like I want to keep talking about it, but
There's
like
a
we have
lot
no
to
time.
unpack. It's
So
something I literally could take all day. That's why I was, like, afraid to talk about it in the chat. I was like, "I could literally talk about this all day."
yeah, I
I
mean, but no, I
could.
mean and
Yeah.
I could literally listen to it all day. So it's
It's
like,
if you like I said, come by my channel. We talk about it, like, this is and there are people everybody has their own opinion on it, and it creates a lot of interesting ideas, and it's really just a writing exercise. You're
yeah,
sort of, like, figuring out the themes, and that's why I said, like, I treat it like you're reading a book. You understand the themes, you can kinda project and see where the story is going, because
right.
obviously there's some twists that we haven't experienced yet, and I wanna know what they are. That's why we sit here and we speculate these things.
Yeah, and it's fun, right? Like it's fun to see if you're right. It's fun to see if you're completely wrong. It's fun to just exercise your imagination, right?
Exactly.
So thank you for that exercise in imagination. Now, we have about 30 minutes
Another
left.
30 minutes.
And we have two topics that are pretty big, I think. Like you can definitely go on for a long time. I already
Ye
know.
So, I
So,
think what we should do
mhm.
is probably talk about Yaimiko a little bit,
Mhm.
because I think I can get through that really quick,
Right.
and then we can kinda just go as long as we need to on the
All
segmentation,
right,
because that's
let's
all
do that.
speculation anyway.
Let's do that then. Let's talk about Yai Miko.
Alright, so, one of these crazy tinfoil hat ideas that I had a long time ago was I was considering we were playing through the Inazuma arc in my stream.
Uh-huh.
I am a huge, huge Miko fan. I'm not trying. I want to preface this because people think that the way I speak about this, I'm trying to drag Miko through the dirt or something.
Oh
I,
no.
I'm just saying she's the best player in the game. All right, that's all I'm saying. Like she is. There's something going on in Inazuma. We all know this because we're always on board with whatever she does. She's got this charisma. She's got this like way of like lying to us, and we're still like, oh, aren't you a stinker? We love you. It's so just So let me bring up what a kitsune is, right? I'm
Uh-huh.
not saying that obviously we are taught that one of the great things I think about Inazuma is it goes over the idea that yokai aren't necessarily what their stories denote them are. Case in point, Arataki Ito. Um,
Right.
if you want to know a little bit about Arataki Ito and what an oni is, and actually you might know this because you have a Japanese background. In folklore, an oni actually is basically the Japanese version of a boogeyman for children,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what Ito is. He's sort of the boogeyman. He basically does everything the boogeyman is supposed to do. He influences his community. He gets the kids respect him, even though they tend to make fun of him. They usually respect him after relating to him after a bit.
Right.
Um, but it's kind of like one of those things. The boogeyman is a silly idea. It's goofy if you actually think about it. There's nothing really scary about the boogeyman. It's a very shallow, like you better do what you're told story, and that's kind of what Ito is. He's goofy. People are like, oh, he's harmless. He's good with the kids, But so I think that you could say at least I would say this. I would say at least Yaimiko is got some basis of what a kitsune is. Um, I had to pull it back up. All right, so if you want to know what a kitsune is in Japanese, we're gonna go with the Japanese because Inazuma is Japanese. There's also some variants in the Korean myths. We're not really gonna go into that. That's more of Ari from League of Legends.
Yeah.
Um, so according to Japanese folklore, it's a yokai, which we've learned about. We just talked about Ito. We've had a whole bunch of experiences with yokai and what I'd say is yokai have the ability to possess people. We find that all yokai have the ability to possess, whether it be an object or people, they have the ability to possess and form. So it's very interesting that Yae Miko's sort of character quest or story quest talks about yokai possession. I think first of all, that's a big tell to what might be going on in the inner workings is that Yae Miko is probably capable of possessing people. Now that being said, here's some other things that Kitsune can do. They have the ability to shapeshift into human form. So that's like anybody
Mhm.
they want, depending on how powerful they are. I think the younger they are, it's usually just like a form that they've created themselves. It gets progressively and better over time, right?
Mhm.
Like if you guys watched Inuyasha, there's Shippo.
Oh yeah.
Shippo can't really do things very good because he's a young kitsune. You just think that her powers got really good over time. Essentially, we don't know how old my Yayamiko is, but it's safe to assume that she's like 500 years or more. So that's really powerful kitsune, given what I am told from the Wikipedia.
Right. And she's like
Um,
a higher level kitsune, like a sky kitsune.
yes, yes. So basically, they tend to interact with humans a lot. There's even they basically are guardians, friends, and even sometimes lawyers,
Lawyers.
lovers. We were talking about lawyers so much earlier. My bad. So they often also in folklore tend to fall in love with shrine maidens. Yaimiko's name is also very interesting. It comes from the word that means to bud, like a sakura blossom buds, and Miko, which means shrine maiden. It just literally just means shrine maiden, right?
Mhm.
So I I I think it's like maybe that's just her fake alias. It's just a clever fake alias. But when I started thinking about this, some of the other things that they can do is possess people through their fingernails. That's not really important. The other thing is kind of important. They also go through young maiden's chest. As we know that or I'm sorry, A pulls, or even the Raiden Shogun pulls a sword out of her chest. Kitsune are able of making illusions, which may or may not. Maybe even though she's a thunder manifestation, she could have been taught by Yai to do some of these things. Uh, eh, okay, this is where it gets a little tricky. Yai doesn't go through with us in the portal, right? To go fight Raiden, essentially the Raiden puppet, because she kind of like speaks of it's like maybe A's ego, right? That she doesn't want to be there because it's something that you could help her with and she won't get so mad about. But I kind of wonder if Yai caused this problem to begin with, in the sense that I'm not sure if Makoto, because the only accounts we ever get of Makoto is from one of the like servants that gave them tea, and that
Mhm.
servant was blind, right?
Right.
So he said that he saw both of them, but I wonder if it either was a split in personality or if it was Yai impersonating her sister. Like, what if the atrocities that A committed, or the entity that is A or Makoto committed, were too much for her and it caused like segmentation? It also could have been left up or from another samsara. Maybe this is her as a memory from another samsara. I don't know. There's a lot of weird things going on with that tree, which, by the way, Kitsune can turn into giant trees. It literally says that in the Wikipedia.
Mhm.
So that's also really weird. They can turn into moons. Really powerful Kitsune can just turn into moons.
Cool. I mean, why not?
Yeah, right. And then I guess the other thing I would point out is that usually when they're energy vampires. So back in the day, we used to joke a lot about slime theory, right? Um, there are two types of electro slime, and maybe it denotes the twins, maybe it demotes something else. One of the slimes draws power from the other. It's essentially like a battery. I think that if slime theory is meant to be true, right? Which it has to be because it doesn't matter. It follows the characteristics of the element.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a silly theory because it almost has to be true. It like insists upon itself. But if we are to take the idea that the slime theory is that each slime represents the archon or the archon's abilities or the nature of the archon, um, a lot of people suggested that the Dendro archon was in hiding, as we found out she kind of was, right?
Mhm.
Um, and there's various things, but one of the things about that is one of the slimes basically batteries the other one. So if Yaimiko is a kitsune and she's sort of the acting archon, or maybe the previous archon, or maybe there's something that she is not telling us because she is, in fact, really good at lying. And by the way, I don't mean this to sound sinister. I think she is literally doing this all because she loves A. And that is the precursor you have to believe to go with any of this headcanon. But
Right.
the only thing I would say about that is when they interviewed the English VA about Yaimiko going into the game, the one that voiced Raiden slash A slash Makoto. She said, "Oh, that's my girlfriend," and maybe that was the direction she was given, but also, mm, i- i- if Yai loves A and she's been doing all this for A, there's a possibility that she would basically take on some of those responsibilities that she herself couldn't.
Mm,
And if she's drawing from the energy, just imagine a really powerful being already drawing from a thunder manifestation to power her abilities even more.
mm.
So I'm saying that in a Zuma wide scale, a lot of it could just be illusions in general. Um, and so that would kind of discredit. I don't think they're going to pull a big twist like that. Like Genshin's audience is not something that I think it takes to. I think it is a smart audience, but I think that's a little much even for them because they still cater, I think, to a wide audience. And
Yeah.
even
I
still,
mean, I'm curious, right? Because if you look at Honkai, like, yes,
yeah,
it's very niche, but
yeah,
like, man, like that story just goes like they don't care.
hard,
It's very smart.
hard.
Like, it's very hard
It
to
takes no
understand.
prisoners.
Yeah. So I'm
And
like,
so
what if they do that? What if they just do that with Genshin because it's,
I'm waiting for them to pull the trigger on one aspect or another. I know they kind of teased Zhao dying, or at least they wanted us to think that was going to happen,
right,
right?
right.
At least it was written that way. He didn't. I don't think he should have yet. I think it should set up for the downfall of Zhongli later, but I don't know. Um, oh yeah, so the big thing, but we do have to get to segmentation, huh?
Yeah.
I guess we got probably about 3 minutes. To wrap up, energy vampires. Thing about Kitsune are energy vampires. What they usually do is they have a pearl or an orb that they usually draw energy from their quote unquote victim or willing recipient, either way.
Okay.
Because um that orb that comes out of I mean, there's an orb that literally comes out of eye and goes into the Sakura tree. And even though there's the voice of what we presume is Makoto, what if that was just Yaimiko? What if that's just her orb drawing energy out of her? I mean,
Jeez.
there's nothing to make us believe that, but like it's really coincidental, don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and Yai's not there. And Yai has all these abilities. So
Sus.
that's just one of those things. I'm a Makoto sort of denier.
A Makoto
um,
denier? Oh my god.
and people give me a lot of crap. It's like, well, okay, so there's probably not enough to go off of, and there are some things here and there that would disprove the theory. But like, still, like I said, they could literally just rewrite any part of Inazuma. I feel like because it's left pretty vague, and you have a character that could be as powerful as Yaimiko, and that's
Mm,
really just the summary of it all. Kitsune are super powerful. There's just I'm not saying that they have to go word from word. I mean, like you said with Honkai,
mhm.
there is a Raiden, there's Raiden Mei, who's like an A counterpart, and there is Sakura Yai,
Yeah.
who is literally like a counterpart of Yaimiko. They're basically
Yep.
almost essentially the same
Alternate versions
character.
of themselves.
Yeah. So
I like what
just something.
I always think we have to go to Honkai when we get like really deep into the story stuff because
Oh
like I
yes.
mean I love what Island said when I interviewed him.
Oh
He's
man.
like, they knew what they were doing when they changed their name to Hoyoverse,
Yes.
right?
No. No,
Like
they did.
it is connected. Like even if they don't directly relate to it or even just not yet, they're
Mhm,
connected. And we know Honkai and Star Rail, Honkai Third and Star Rail are connected directly.
mhm.
And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there are references to Genshin. So like really it's just a matter of time, and that's why I believe that, like, despite the audience of Genshin, I think they will do what they want to do with the story, and they've already set it up in such uh
I
a
think it's
complicated
gonna
way.
hit us like a train,
Yeah, I mean,
dude. When it
dude,
finally
even
comes in,
that Nahida thing, the Samsara festival, like, like if if even if Genshin has like a like a casual audience, Samsara
Mhm.
Festival was not for a casual audience. That was like
Mm-mm.
we were talking about.
I
Like
think
people were like, "Wait, did I like
dude,
go to the wrong?"
even for the smartest reader, that is confusing as hell.
Yeah, like there's so
You should
many
go out there and
people.
guess. I've watched people, like, unravel on stream trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, they're like, "Is my game
And
glitching?"
it's fun. It's fun. It's great. Like,
Yeah.
I love watching men play through it. I love watching, Annie play through it. I love watching all the lore keepers. I've watched pretty much everyone. I think I watched Owlette play through it.
Oh my
It's
god.
a good one to watch people play through. It really is. It's like, "Huh?"
Yeah. So I think they're not. I don't think they're gonna limit themselves based on what they think the
Well,
audience wants. I really think they're setting us up for some
let me
crazy
ask
stuff.
you let me ask you a dumb question. You don't really have to answer
There are
this,
no
and it
dumb
really don't
questions.
have too much, but no, it's a pretty silly one. Do you think that what you know about you have a pretty decent knowledge of Honkai, right?
Yeah.
You know auto apocalypses, yeah?
Yeah.
What are the chances? What do you think of the odds? You think I don't think they're huge odds, but what do you think is the odds of like auto apocalypse maybe being the second who came?
Like
Or at least a version of him, you know?
I so that's what I was thinking. I was thinking it was a version of him. And
Yeah, me too, me too.
there's like all this like there's look, blonde people have a significance in this game, okay? That's all I'm gonna
Oh,
say.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure.
So
In various ways, good or bad.
yes, so I think that they're just it's gonna be a huge reveal. Like,
Oh,
you
for
know,
sure. I think he has to have something to do with it. It doesn't have to be big, but he has to have something to do with it. It's just it would be crazy not to think because okay, guys, if you aren't familiar with Honkai and Auto Apocalypse, he's essentially this guy who destroyed a whole bunch of realities and created, a whole bunch of different ones and influenced a whole bunch of people and manipulated his way to basically create one universe, literally only one universe where him and his true love from childhood could be together.
by the way, also Ayato's Japanese voice.
Oh yeah, also Ayato's Japanese voice. Ladies, gentlemen, find you a guy that would destroy universes for you like Auto Apocalypse. That's
Yeah.
not toxic at
Oh, you
all.
what's it called? Nihida's Story Quest, the one where the guy
Yeah.
absorbs everyone's dreams to create a world where he could be with his lost love.
Oh my god. If
Find you a
that's not
man
like
like him.
well, so like the thing is about like that is it not just like a microcosm?
I
Like
mean, it
like
is. It is. It
like
100% is.
let's look at like Scaramouche. Is that just not kind of a preface of like, okay, well, this is what it thinks like a human being in the observable universe thinks becoming a god is? LOL. The
Mhm.
experiment was a failure. LOL, says Dottore. Which might be a decent segue there because we got about 15 minutes,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah, yeah.
Uh, segmentation, man.
Yeah, so let's talk about let's just hop and skip right over to our next topic then about segmentation. So what is segmentation? What are segments? What are your thoughts? And you have 15 minutes, go.
Okay, okay. 15 minutes. 15 minutes to save the world. All right. Dottore is one of the most interesting characters in Genshin, first of all. Just have to say that. Love it. Beautifully written. We needed a villain like that. And I say villain, but I would say maybe antagonist. And he's really the only true antagonist we have right now. All of our other antagonists have become our BFFs. We have like Wanderer, Child. I'm serious. Like
Yeah, I know,
it's
I
crazy.
know. I love it.
It's like the only that we are aware of that is antagonistic, that has literally challenged us so far, has been this mandatory, and he is his entrance was fabulous. It is one of the best entrances of any character in the game. People are literally clapping for the traveler, but you know it's for him.
It's so
You know
good.
that he's literally just stroking his own ego, going over his own plan, and talking about himself in the most pompous way. And I love him for it. He's like literally the Joker of this universe. Like
Yeah.
he is a well-written character. We don't know his origin. I don't want him humanized. I almost don't want him playable. I'm sure we'll get a playable friendly version of him. So
Yeah.
that goes
Well,
into what
the segments. Yeah, here
segmentation
we go.
is, right? Segments, right? So if you haven't played through Dottori's storyline, I'm sorry we probably spoiled a little bit, but I'm gonna further spoil it by saying Dottori creates different versions of himself, or has, or acquired them. We're not sure about the logistics. So for one of the things that for me, if you come by my channel, is I always want to discuss what are the rules of segmentation because I think it has a greater, more practical application. And that is like, what is Dottori's involvement with the Fatui? Um, I wonder. if we are have gone through previous samsaras, or if this is like the seventh rendition of the story or a different rendition of the story.
Hmm.
And Dane has mentioned the story is already done. We are basically just going through a different version of it, essentially. The casts may have changed a little bit here and there. Maybe the players, the world's a stage. There's a lot of theater references
Right.
in this as well, which I love. But that oh man, I always want to talk about Dainsleif and some of the questions he asked. But anyway, Dainsleif is like, well, um, I can't talk about the because that's a different theory. That's not on this. I got to stay on track. All right, I'll have to regale you sometime about why I think visions are just crap. They have no
Oh,
purpose. I
oh,
don't.
I have same.
Yeah, I think Dainsleif's question at the beginning of the game, like, do you think everyone should have visions, is very telling of that. But
Yeah,
we'll talk about that some other time.
yeah.
Um,
We could talk about
look,
allergenes and stuff. Or,
oh my god,
yeah,
allergies. I
yeah.
didn't even really go into
Well,
that. Oh my
I want to
god.
talk about I mean, we could just offline,
Segmentation.
but like, I mean, like, I want to talk about Way's last video about like,
Oh,
this
yeah,
is
yeah, 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 yeah.
our first samsara, but and that's why we don't have
Yeah.
constellations in the sky, and that's why Mona can't tell our future and all that stuff. But all right, the segments.
Yeah, segments. Okay, so hypothetically, if we know that Dotori can create multiple versions, this is the application aspect of it. I don't know the rules of it. He did technically somehow destroy all of them at once. That's weird. I don't. Maybe he had a failsafe planned in. Maybe there's a bomb inserted in each one of them. I have no clue.
Mm,
Maybe there is a certain level of achievement you can have over past selves of yourself. Maybe that's what the constellations are in the game.
mm-hmm,
Uh, so like each constellation you get for a character could be a stronger or different more aspect of yourself from a different travel that that character has had,
mm-hmm.
and you're sort of just absorbing all that. It also plays into the concept that what if the traveler is literally just the traveler throughout the whole game and is just mimicking the styles or becoming the characters that he's met along their travels? What if literally those four characters are at once are all just you turning into different people? That's a theory that someone's had. It's called the blade theory because in the cutscene,
Yes,
Traveler
yes.
is always holding a dead blade. Do you think that Hoyoverse is lazy enough, a multi-million dollar, billion-dollar company, actually, my bad, to sit there and not program the current sword that the Traveler is wearing in your universe,
Yeah,
your
I
inventory?
think that one was Tevat Historia, maybe.
I'm
Um,
pretty sure. Yeah,
yeah,
also a great one.
he's
Also a
great.
great one. I love
Um,
that dude.
so yeah,
Um,
I love that theory though. Definitely on
and so
purpose.
I think it's very purposeful. It's just like when they say like they could program weather and stuff, but yet we have the same sort of cycle, and it doesn't quite follow the correct moon cycle. I think that's also very telling. So these little details, when you dissect, I always say to you guys, like I know we don't have too much time, but like when you consume media, whether it's a video game or not, to look at purposeful details. Because Hoyoverse, is a very thoughtful company. They have us fill out a survey almost every other week, right?
Yeah,
And they care about our opinion of things. They wanna know what our thoughts are so they can plan the game accordingly. And to say that that is like a detail that they overlooked is laughable. It's gotta be something. And so, it kinda plays into segmentation in my mind because what if you could yourself say, "This is what Dotori found," like, just put yourself in Dotori's shoes, find multiple versions of yourself like that, your different experiences, but give them a physical form.
mm,
And I think that's kinda what he did. These are just some SARs that he has of maybe clones in a lab that are going through dream sequences that he's programmed, and they come out the other end another Dotori. Now, granted, maybe they're from different aspects of his life. Maybe each time it's different experiences. That's why they all vary. We learned that basically from Scaramouche's tale. If you look at nature versus nurture, there's what's called tabula rasa in sociology. It's essentially the idea of a blank slate. A child is a blank slate.
mm,
So when you look at Scaramouche, he's molded by his trauma. Whether you want to call it experiences, trauma, we pretty much attribute trauma to Scaramouche.
right.
Once you take that trauma away from him, he's a different person. And we always joke, trauma's character development. In a way, it kind of is, but like also that's a super messed up joke. But
Yep.
like once you give it back to him, he's like, oh shit. Like he kind of becomes the snarky person that he once was, but he's also learned a lesson essentially. Hypothetically speaking, what if that's what you do? You find like you can clone bodies essentially. maybe the Sarista has her power truly is just refrigeration, you know? So you can now have these corpuscles on tap.
Mm-hmm.
You can somehow put them in this box, like we saw in, say, Senora's scene, where it's not really a coffin, it's a dream simulator where they sort of reprogram these clones, put all the memories inside of them, and then just let them back out in the world. So even though Senora is dead and we want her to be playable, truthers, you guys, you copers out there, I'm with you guys, you Senora copers. It's possible.
Oh, very
It might not be the
possible.
same. It's not may not be the same Senora, but it could be a segment of hers. So I'm wondering if he can, if he doesn't gotten the technology developed yet, and he says it's super hard to do, the possibility still exists that he has practical application outside of himself. It
Right.
might also be easier to do with somebody like Senora because she's got that sort of, I mean, she's basically immortal, actually. If you read some of her stuff, it's in the lore, but I'm not going to go into that because it's a whole nother discussion. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what it is in my mind, it's possible that the Fatui are all either different constellations of the same entity, which might be why we have Pantalone and Baiju in the same universe. They look very similar.
Mm-hmm.
You have light mode, dark mode. Um, Eula, wait, I don't. Oh, we shouldn't talk about leaks. I know Eula is a very secret character that we
Oh
forgotten
yeah,
or Hoyle.
there's no Eula,
Yeah,
so
well, we don't. I don't know who Eula is, but let's just say there is a character named Eula, and there's another one called Archuleno. They look very similar too. I definitely see that as well. A lot of people point that out. There was the idea that maybe Sandone is maybe a different
of
reincarnation of
the Guhua, or wait, no,
yeah,
what's her
yeah,
name?
Zhongli's boo.
The girl. Yes,
I
yes.
was I was referred to as Zhongli's boo,
Zhongli's
even though
boo.
I don't know that
Yeah.
that's canonical, but they kind of imply that they might have been a thing.
Wait. What was her name?
Oh, I can't. It blanks every
Guizong.
time.
Guizong. Thank you. Yes, Guizong.
Guizhong.
Guizong.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
Yes, and yeah,
Um,
Arlecchino is like Eula looking. Oh yeah, I love that. And
yeah,
then Pantalone is kind of Baiju looking. People say
yeah,
that.
and there's like also the possibility exists that I mean we know that obviously Dottore has roots in Sumeru, so there's been a version of him there.
Right.
I don't know about Piero. Piero probably has got some kind of weird immortal curse or something, so I'm not really worried about segmentations on him. I so what is that then is like what is the point of the Fatui? Why are they so willing to sacrifice themselves? Well, hey, let's circle back to Auto Apocalypse real quick.
Mm.
If you could create a world where you know you would be happy with like a timeline and you could create different versions of yourself and you can ensure that one of those versions will be happy, wouldn't you do it? I mean, if you knew you could get everything you want and you could somehow feel it in your existence, essentially kind of how Dottore has trained himself to feel the thoughts of his other segments. I mean, Signora lost her lover. Child might have died in the abyss at some point, and he still wants to protect his family because they're not strong enough to protect themselves. And that's why he values that strength. There's all kinds of reasons and motivations that the Fatui could say, well, we have to discard our former selves, maybe held on to an aspect of themselves because they're all in it for themselves. Let's be real. They sit here and say that it's a nobler
Yep.
cause, but
Yep.
I think this is the province that is given to them by the Sarista. This is why I think they follow this blindly. And Piero is sort of actually the jester or the puppet master that is pulling the strings. And that is how I would write it anyway. But
Mm.
I digress. It's there, but it's not necessarily. Don't take this as canon. I don't know. This is just me having writer brain.
Yeah. But okay. So tell us about Dream Solvent.
Oh yeah, I did include that. Okay, so how does Dottore get this done? So guys, the big thing I want to take away is anytime we go into a domain in Genshin Impact, we are accessing a fallen civilization. It says that there is a box, much like how our sibling got boxed up at the beginning of the game. There's a significance that goes back to Honkai about that. So what it's called in Honkai and what I think we are accessing, if we are in fact basically going into the abyss. We could call it the void. We could call it a black hole. We could call it like space magic, whatever you want to say it is. Where does that shit go? Well, if we know in science, matter can never be truly destroyed, it's only recreated in energy. What if it is archived instead, much like a computer? that would basically be kind of like what is in Honkai, what is called the Void Archives. So I'm wondering if these domains are in fact Void Archives. And these experiences that we have with weekly bosses, because we fight them every week, it is an instance in time that we are repeating. Is it possible? Let me pull up Dream Solvent because that was the big caveat. I should have did that beforehand. Let me read to you what Dream Solvent is. This
Oh,
is the
do
big
you want me to
thing.
read the description?
Yes, please do if you have
Oh,
it
yeah,
up.
yeah.
Please
Okay.
do.
People once believed that spirits and memories had some material form. If someone dreamed of heaven before waking up clutching a flower, then that blossom must have been made from such a fantasy. Dream Solvent dissolves that which is obtained from memory and transforms it into some other dream. Indeed, blows traded with the strong are stepping stones toward becoming stronger yourself.
So, if you go, this goes back to the Samsara. I'm sorry if you guys haven't played that. I mean, obviously, I think most of you have probably like gotten a snack by now, if that's the case. But we're told that when we talk to Dea that she remembers that things changed a little bit. There was an instance. There was muscle memory. So
Right.
even though she wasn't conscious of it, either her spirit or her body remembered. So essentially, Dream Solvent. Dottore holds a vial, right? He's got a blue vial. It's either on his earring or he swirls it around menacingly. If you look at the item, if you pull it up, you look at the item. It looks kind of like a knowledge capsule. It kind of also looks blue, like a blue substance inside of it. There's sanctifying essence, which if you read that, it's very. We don't need to read that. It's very similar. That's all I need to say about it. This is basically just intangible spirit that you can mold into whatever you imagine in a lot of ways. So what if Dottori's fascination with that is actually the key to his segmentation? And that's kind of what I'm getting at because everything we use to build our characters is stuff that we draw out of the Void Archive.
Mm.
It's all like well, domains, I should say.
Right, right.
I'm calling it, but this is all speculation, obviously. But you could see how that might be something that's pretty critical and something that is just sort of a throwaway weekly item that you probably never even read before. One day I just looked at it and I was like, Dream Solvent's an interesting name. And then I was like, what exactly is this shit? And then I like read it and I was like, oh, this actually might be more important than I thought.
Right.
So, yeah, and that's like one of those things. You read the little books in the lore, you read some of these things like Dream Solvent, the little tooltips. You might find something that is actually could be profound. I mean, we don't know, but that's why I always like, Min always jokes or Min always starts her segments. I read the lore so you don't have to, and we always kind of joke about it a little bit, but it really is a lot of that little stuff that when you look at it, if you guys don't know Min's Live, I know most of you guys know Min. If you don't, I'm surprised. But she's the founder of the Lore Keepers. Great, charming person. But yeah, so that's just it. That's headcanon. I love Dottore. I think that the idea that you could possibly use a substance to manipulate things in that regard, if a lot of these things connect the way that I do, I think the Fatui could quite also possibly be leftover segments. I think they could also quite possibly be trying to work for like Auto Apocalypse, work towards a universe where their spirit is trained to feel that because you ever like they joke in life that like maybe you had a good past life. Some people just find what they want to do in life and they can't understand why, but they have a sense of fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's kind of like in the idea of reincarnation they have in a lot of cultures, I think. And so I wonder if that segmentation is just him embodying and reincarnating parts of his spirit from previous samsaras.
Yeah, I wonder if that'll come into play. I know it's like an item. I mean, even when we look at the item, like what we do with it, right? Where we turn one material into another material and how that like,
Mhm.
that is
It's whatever you need.
yeah, it's just whatever you need. Dream
You don't
solvent.
have enough of it. You don't feel like doing that long ass Scaramouche fight, and you have a bunch of it already. And you just want to convert it to another version of it. Hey, go right ahead.
Yeah.
You remember it well enough.
So, yeah, so thanks for sharing with us.
Oh, no
You
problem.
know,
Thanks for
the
having me.
the 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 tip of the iceberg of most of your thoughts. And Yeah, so
There's plenty of them, guys, and I rant all the time, so if you enjoyed it, like I said,
yeah.
this is what we talk about. This is literally it. I barely play Genshin. It's a front for just chatting.
So okay, so I mean, sounds like most Genshin streamers, but um,
Yeah, no, it is.
so
In a nutshell.
where can we find you? Where's your? This is the plug time.
Yeah. So, twitch.tv/MythicMageHat, all one word, or, I'm on Twitter, MythicMageHat. You can find me on TikTok. If you want to do me a favor, you can bully me, and eventually I will put videos on this TikTok called at something loreable. Because it's based off of a segment that actually I hope to have. Maybe I can have you on sometime
Oh,
in the near future, where I plan on having, much like this, people on to talk about their tinfoil hat lore theories.
oh,
Something truly loreable.
yeah.
So, yeah, that's the TikTok plug. I got a Discord. You can find that on the Twitch though. It's all good. Like, honestly, and please follow any of the wonderful lore keepers. Please follow this channel if you liked it and you're hanging out, you just discovered it. There's a
Yeah,
lot of really wonderful content creators involved with all of this and
there
in the
is.
Genshin.
Yes, the Genshin community, especially the people who focus on lore, are all
Oh
really
yeah.
cool people. At this point, I've already interviewed like I don't know, almost 10 of them. So
Yeah.
everybody's great. It's
I know
really
you had
cool.
Katie. Did you interview Katie?
Yeah, I interviewed Katie, who was in this chat
Yeah,
earlier. I interviewed Owlet. I interviewed
yeah.
Island, Tevat
My
Historia. I
God.
interviewed Ashkai too. So yeah,
Oh my God, did you really?
yeah, I did.
And
So
that's cool. I would probably be fanboying too much. She always has, like, the best theories, honestly.
I'm not gonna lie. I didn't even know that it was her videos I was watching before I was
Oh,
assigned
really?
to
No,
interview
hey,
her.
that's funny. No, I didn't know that. I watched a lot of Island's video before he joined the Lore Keepers, and then it just occurred to me, I'm like, "Oh, wait, that's Island." I'm like, I watch his videos. I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, shit."
Yeah, no,
Excuse me.
all great people. So, yeah, so we posted the links to Mythic Maze Hat's socials in the chat. So if you aren't already following, go ahead and give him a follow. And yeah, everybody, thank you for joining us today. We are going to
You
be ending this stream by rating Bran Online. So we will be
ran.
yeah, we'll be doing that in a moment, but for now, the podcast discussion ends here, and we'll continue our discussions on our streams. So, yeah, we'll see you soon. So, thank you, everybody. I'm gonna go ahead
Thank
and
you, guys.
mute our little characters and stuff, and we will start the raid very
Bye.
soon. Please stick around if you are down. So, thank you all. Thank you, Mythic.
Thank you.